We have very little preamble here, so we are just going to go straight into it. I am going to introduce. I've not even got my glasses on. I'm cleaning my glasses. I finally found the lens cloth that I was looking for.
Welcome to The Fix. Sit down with copywriting experts Nick O'Connor and Glenn Fisher as they review, discuss, and improve real-world copy sent in by you. This is The Fix.
Welcome to The Fix, everybody. We are joined, as you can see, by a very special guest, Mr. Eddie Shleyner.
That's right. Perfect.
We've been, me and Nick have been, well, not me and Nick. I felt like it was Shleyner, but Nick's been struggling with the pronunciation of your name and interpreting what it could be.
Incorrect. I was worried I was going to say it wrong. That's all. It was a politeness issue. I'm English. I don't want to upset a guest on the show. Equally, you know, if we're being copywriters, we should take some of the letters out of your second name to make it easier to scan.
I agree. Or add one like a C. It might make more sense. But no, I've had trouble pronouncing my name for a really long time. I used to spell my name out. Like when I was in grade school, people would ask me my name. I'd be like Eddie Shleyner, because it's hard for me for whatever reason to say that SHL part. I don't know why.
It's that bit I think which makes it like it's that L just throws it, and you're like, oh, that shouldn't. And there's a Y coming, and you're like, oh, there's a Y coming up ahead, and I don't know how to deal with that yet. But someone's thrown me now. Anyway, Eddie, thank you.
It's this opening which proves why Eddie has such a huge copywriting following online, and we have a relatively small one, because within seconds of the show starting, we've gone down a tangent that has nothing to do with copywriting. So it's my job to try and get us back on track and save some of the tangents for later on.
I won't let you. No, we're gonna go straight into some copy, Eddie, and then we're gonna find out a little bit more about you later on. But what we do like to do is review copy. So, unbeknownst to you, we have got some copy to review, and I'm going to share it. I'm going to read it out aloud, and then we can riff on it and get our thoughts on it. So I will share my screen. I'm thinking of the best way.
Screen. Yeah, go on.
I'll share my screen.
This is a piece of copy from one of our Fix Accelerator members. So it's not the first time we've seen some of Matt's copy before. In fact, he comes on the live calls almost every week. So I think we've reviewed more of Matt's copy than any other writer. It's not a world dominating anecdote, but Glenn is taking an alarmingly long time. There we go.
There you go.
Let's take a look at his copy. But Glenn, let's let you read it out.
Okay, so we're going to go for a landing page. He sent us a two-piece copy, an email lift, and a landing page. We're going to go with the landing page because that will probably give us some more to talk about, and I will start reading. Headline reads, accelerate your acting career. Smash your barriers, plan your strategy, get seen more often. And there's a CTA button saying, let's talk about your acting career. And the main copy reads, the acting industry isn't as tough as people would have you believe. But when you're an emerging actor who hasn't yet got to grips with it, it can feel like a struggle. Uncertain about where to start, what your unique value is, what you need to do to take the next step. Overwhelmed by the world of acting, you're not sure how to deal with the ups and downs and make sense of the noise. Frustrated because you know you're an amazing actor, but the roles just aren't coming in. Forget those negative feelings, because showing you what I've learned through 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears will get you better results within 30 days. Get help whenever you need it. You'll have a constant line of communication with me. We'll work through any obstacles together. Whether you need some pointers for your upcoming self-tape, want to know the best way to reach a particular casting director, or simply need a bit of a pep talk, I'll be there for you. Shall I stop there? That's plenty to go on. Nick, Eddie, thoughts?
Well, since I don't want to put Eddie on the spot, since we never share the copy with our guests before record these episodes, because we want it to feel like a real writer's room, not something where we've all spent 2 days copiously making notes. This is us experiencing copy for the first time. So I just had a few little comments to kick us off. The first one is, like, structurally, it's very, very sound. I would say it's doing all of the right things in the right places. It's clearly directed at a prospect who has thoughts and feelings and pain points that we can work with. So it's doing lots of the basics, which is kind of 80% of the job, really, really well. So I'm going to nitpick on the 20%, which is where we can make the big difference. So I thought I'd just kick us off just with that headline: accelerate your acting career. And I just want to zoom in on the word accelerate, because we talked about this on a previous copy review. Words like that are it's benefit sounding, but it's actually about a process. It's like building or accelerating. It's, you're going, we want to sell the location, the destination. Where will you end up with my help? Now, accelerate clearly is a benefit within that space. But I wonder whether or not we can push it even further and say, well, to where? Where will you end up with this person's help? Because ultimately, that's what's going to motivate somebody to buy, rather than accelerate might sound slightly, okay, what does that mean? It's kind of sounds great, but it's about journey, and we want to talk about destination, I think. That said, I can't actually think off the top of my head of what I would put there. So why don't we riff on that a little bit? Any thoughts, Eddie?
Yeah, so I like the way that you were I like the way that you're thinking about that. The way I think about landing page heroes, which is, I guess, what we're talking about here in the first piece, is I think about it like elementally in elements. So I think about it as I think about, well, what's the primer? What's the headline? What's the subhead? What's the body copy? What's the call to action? And what's the hero image? And so I think about those elements, and I think each element has a very specific job to do, so in the primer, which is actually missing from this hero, I think of it as just kind of like giving ultimate clarity to the page, to the visitor of the page. What is this product? What is this service? Where are you? So that's what I think of as like the primer copy, which is just like this little piece of text right before the headline. And then when I think about the headline, I think about it as like a big, bold, beautiful promise, which is aligned with, I think, with what you're saying, Nick, is like accelerate is, I guess, part of that promise, but it's not really the destination, so to speak, but what you were talking about. And then when I think about the subhead, I think about like future pacing, like what is the visitor or the prospect's tomorrow look like with your service or product in it, or their next week or next month. So I try to future pace in that subhead. And then in the body copy, I think about it as like the next logical question is like, okay, how? You made this promise to me, you showed me what my future is going to look like. How are you going to do this? So in the subhead, I think about answering that question of how. What is the differentiator? What are you doing differently than everybody else that's going to enable this big promise, this big claim that you're making? And in the CTA, I'm thinking about how do I get people to act urgently? It's like how do I if somebody's like, oh, okay, this page looks like it's for me, this product looks like it's for me, but maybe I'm gonna go fucking make a sandwich first or take this call first. How do you stop people from doing that and make them act right away? So how do you inject some urgency into it? Do you do a scarcity play as far as the number of seats that are available? Is there some sort of economic play where you could save money if you take action before a certain time? And then the art, that's all kind of, that's not really my domain, but I think of it as kind of like supporting that CTA, that urgency. How can we kind of like just call more attention to it? So anyway, that's kind of my ethos in general as far as like heroes go on landing pages.
Why don't we work through, because I quite like that, because I feel like we could fill in some of those blanks. So what you call a primer, I think we would Glenn and I would probably call an eyebrow, but it's effectively something, we're talking about the same thing, something that would set up that main headline. And I think you're right, actually. But probably, if in doubt, we can just you can do one or two things: call out the target market, or kind of call out the product. So you can go two ways. So like the two ways we could do this would be like, I'll give you the cliched versions, and then Matt can make it better when he's working on the copy. But if it was target market, it might be like an open letter to frustrated actors who want to take their career to the next level. Or if it was the product, it would be like an invitation from Britain's leading acting coach to take your career to the next level. I'm going to just sort of vomit that out, but just something like that would frame it one way or the other. And then that, because that kind of lets you know what's on offer here, because that's one thing that maybe is missing. There's kind of emotion and the promise. There's a clear promise. I think it could be stronger, but there is a clear promise, but it's not necessarily clear. Okay, what am I being sold here?
I got that feeling. I something just, it's clean, it's good, and there's like, we know Matt from being in our accelerator ironic group, but I felt like if I landed on this page, I'm just wondering, where am I? There's nothing like, I think that accelerate headline and then the smash your barriers, plan your strategy, get seen more often. If you get rid of the word, the phrases acting career, and like there's not a lot there to hold me. And Eddie using the word primer is a good one for that eyebrow, what we'd call it, but there's nothing there to, it could be anything, like smash your barriers, plan your strategy, get seen more often. That could be like, if I was going into like the dental industry or something, it's like it could be anything, and accelerating your acting. It's not, it doesn't feel quite, there's I've just been reviewing some copy where I was suggesting we were lacking some emotion, and I think there's some that kind of personal. I don't quite know where I am, and that's probably because I'm not speaking to any emotions of where the visitor is. Now I realize you'll be coming from an email or whatever, something, but I think you should probably think that you might have clicked on this page and then come back to it later or what have you. It needs to be its own self. It needs to like have that straight away looking at it. And I feel like there's probably not, you could do it by saying the primer, like from the greatest acting coach ever or something like that, but then it's just, there's not enough emotion. And do I want to accelerate my career? I think, I don't know if it was Nick or Eddie, one of you said, like, I don't know if that's the active word I'd want to do anyway, even in the process kind of thing. I want to accelerate the success of it, but just accelerate my acting. It's like, I'm going to go from like early, my first film as like a bit part to the end of my career. And it's like, I don't want that to happen. I want to be in many roles. I want to do all this kind of stuff. So I don't think that the word is right, but I think more than anything, it's just, I'm not grounded in a place yet to be able to get into all the good stuff that comes later on. Yeah.
It might be like a specificity thing. You know, it's very broad. And so it doesn't put a concrete kind of image in your mind. And so if the headline was more specific, so something to the effect of like, you know, land your first acting gig in the next 90 days or something like that, that's a more specific kind of promise, a more bold promise that you can make. Yeah, for the primer, you know, usually I write my primers very straight. So if it's like, I write most of my copy very straight, but if you know, for the primer, I might say something like, you know, personalized one-on-one calls with an acting coach, or like personal, you know, one-on-one advice about your acting career, or something to that effect. I mean, without knowing too much about what this is, you know, but it's something straight like that, just to let people know that, hey, this is a coaching program. You're going to be with an acting coach. They're going to be giving you one-on-one direction, personalized advice. something to that effect. And then in the headline, yeah, it could be something a little bit more specific than accelerate your acting career, because yeah, like I said, it does accelerate your acting career, doesn't put a concrete image in your mind. And
I think we need to make some decisions there, or guess, which I suppose is a lot of time we have to guess about what our prospect might want, and then they'll tell us through their buying behavior. But what do they want? More roles, more creative freedom, more. It could be a number of things, but then you could tee that up in the headline. You could give the headline a bit more vim and a bit more personality. If it said, like, if it was a quote and it said, "Work with me," I'll say he's called Glenn Fisher. "Work with me, Glenn Fisher, for the next 90 days, and together we'll take your acting career to where you want it to go, ... And then the sub copy can say, that could mean better paid roles. It could mean landing bigger roles. You know what I mean? So you could call out 2 or 3 things in some sub copy there, because the headline is teed up slightly differently. But I think we got to go through that process of, what do our prospects actually want here? They don't want to accelerate their acting career. They want something else, and we have to figure out what that is and then promise it to them. Basically,
they've got that line there. They're frustrated because you're an amazing actor, but the roles that just aren't coming in. That feels more where I'd be leaning in. That might be a primary, like, you're a good actor, but the roles just aren't coming in. Like, how to accelerate your exit. That would immediately give it that place of like, oh right, okay, that's where I am. That's the world I'm in at the moment. And that's what I think is missing. That it's there. He knows what he's doing with that stuff, but I think it's pulling that stuff up to get that up the top there, because I think at the moment, as you say, it's a little bit non-specific. Eddie mentioned the kind of your first gig. I always remember it was in, I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere in America. I went to a thing, and someone like did a pitch on stage, like doing their presentation, and they did it all around. It was they'd become like a millionaire or whatever, but it wasn't. It was the first sale, and that you see this written about all over the shop. But it's that first sale is the one that means something. That moment when you go, oh God, I've created this thing and I've got one person has agreed with me and bought it. It can go on to become like a massively successful thing, but you'll always remember that first sale where it's like, oh God, that's the thing. And I feel like that feeling of like getting your first gig or what have you, that's where I think this would have, where for the actor, for the struggling actor, for the trying to get you stuff, that frustration, it's that first gig, that's the feeling you want to be playing towards. I think that's where the strongest emotion would lie, like getting over that first hurdle.
I guess that could be true, although you'd want to work with I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, I'd want to know more about the buying behavior of previous customers if I was going to do that pitch, because they may have got their first and second and third gig, but not be happy that they're getting enough or whatever, or I don't know, like to map it onto writing. Most people that say you interact with in the world of copywriting have they've got themselves a gig somewhere. It's far more likely they didn't work out, they got paid virtually nothing, they got screwed over, or it's not matching their expectations. So that's a devil's advocate. Not to say that your suggestion was wrong, but I'd want to think about who the customer was a little bit more. But I think underlying all of this is, if you're going to go with this is a promise-driven landing page, right? Making a promise to the customer about some problem we can solve in their life, which is basically route one when it comes to writing copy. Like, there are loads of other ways we can go, but like, if this will work, we should do this. But I think if you're going to make a promise, you have to look at what you've written and then say to yourself, can my prospects see what I'm promising them? Like, is it pin sharp? Do they know exactly, can they visualize instantly what it is that I'm promising? And if they can't, you need to figure out how could you, and probably go too far with it. Like, put I don't know, like how far could we push this? Like a headline that's like, you on stage, the audience, there's 10,000 people in the audience. Like, describe it, because there'll be one part of that sentence you write that would be like, like, that's the headline. That's it. Like, it was just that picture, that moment, that first standing ovation, that first bouquet of flowers. Or, I don't know, I'm being cliched now.
But that's true though. I mean, Glenn said something before. He used the word moment, and I thought that was thought that was spot on. I mean, for me, like copywriting is all about moments. Moments create feelings, and if you can connect that feeling to a product or a service or whatever you're selling, you could put somebody in that moment and connect them to that feeling. That's how you sell things. So it's like, how do we put the prospect of this page into that moment that they really want to be in, that one spot that they really want to see themselves in. And to that end, it's kind of like the 40-40-20 rule, where like the success of any direct marketing campaign, conventional wisdom says that like 40% of it depends on the market. So who you're going after, who you're putting this in front of, 40% of it depends on the offer. So what's in it for me? What's in it for that market? Basically, what are you saying to these people, or what are you giving them to compel that action sooner rather than later? And then 20% is really just the creative, right? Which breaks down into several things, probably like copy and then art and then formatting. So like knowing who we're talking to and knowing what those people want, deeply, that's 40% of the whole game. So, I think it's really hard to like jump into a landing page or any kind of campaign without being intimately familiar with that piece of it, without knowing that market backwards and forwards.
I think that is definitely true. Although actually, by the way, that headline that they have there, accelerate your acting career, that's the kind of thing, I would probably reuse that somewhere further down on the page. Like maybe the opening line, like dear, you've got the deck copy and whatever. Dear aspiring actor, accelerating your acting career. That's my mission. Like you can get straight into it like that. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but we gotta.
I think you could even
gotta show destination. We gotta show.
That could become the primer. Like the simple step to accelerate your acting career puts me in the mood. But then I think you can. I just know. I feel like, because I know Matt as well, but I feel like there's that stronger headline there. But like it was really interesting, Eddie, you breaking it down into those elemental things, because I think what you do by doing that, you can see, all right, that headline, actually that isn't the headline that's making the big promise and that is the primer that sets the scene. Like, we're going to accelerate copywriting. How? Well, that's the big headline that's going to get me and attract me. So I think that's the stuff is there. I think it's just me missing that like killer blow.
You know what? If this was me, I try to approach writing like it's almost like it's exercise in some ways. Like there's exercises we can do. So like, let's say I really like that idea of like a promise is really just a moment. Like you have to isolate the moment. So I think I would go away and write like 10 moments. Like the moment you sign with an agent, the moment you get a standing ovation on stage, the moment you get a 5-star review, whatever. I'd go away and I'd think about, I'd come up with like 10. And then I'd say to myself, right, I'm going to write like a 50 to 100 word vignette that describes each of those moments. Like, and I would force not a headline, just like, you're on stage, the curtain's just fallen. And I would just like really just try and write it like a little, and I feel confident that if I did that 10 times, one of them, even if I didn't write it, the idea would drop into my head that would be like, it's that, isn't it? But the reason that I like an approach like that is I feel like, okay, that's a process I can go through. I can say, I want to make a promise. If I have to make a promise, I need to isolate a moment. If I need to isolate one moment, I need to write 10 because 9 of them will be shit. And then I can go away and do it. And like that starts to feel like something that I could do over and over. And that's how it's like exercise, right? I just keep doing it and eventually it will work. Which is
it seemed like Matt was kind of doing it, just he was coming at it from the negative. He was kind of pointing out all the bad feelings that actors might run into as they're kind of coming up. And so we're kind of like flipping it. And I guess they say like, people are more compelled by pain. People kind of, they jog to pleasure, but they sprint from pain kind of thing. But, maybe there's a healthy balance of both that could be.
You could reverse that out though, right? Like you could have a headline. Okay, so if we were going route 1, we would have a headline that said, quote, I got the part.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what you would write. Okay,
that's a problem. Yes, yeah.
I got the part. Blah, 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 blah. Bit of imagery. It's gonna happen for you. you can then reverse out into the problem. Because if we draw a pin sharp picture of where we're going, then the contrast of the pain point becomes even sharper, right? It's about contrast. It's not just pain. It's like, here's where we're going and here's where you are. Here's how you're feeling. But we're going here. And all of a sudden, okay, we've got these two images. It looks like I'm dancing. We've got these two images and our product exists to take you from A to B. It's really simple. So we probably got to draw both of those things out. So maybe it's actually, yeah, that's right. He's being a bit negative, but if we draw the positive, those two things will work. Yeah, maybe that is
That's good. Right. I hopefully that was interesting for and useful for Matt.
You're annoyed that I came up with the headline. I can tell. I can tell you're annoyed at me. You've just moved on too quickly. I wanted you to praise me for that headline.
I'll praise you in the way I always praise you, and that is by sending you WhatsApp voice messages at 1 o'clock in the morning, just whispering, Nick, I'm asleep in bed.
I got the part.
I got the part.
Great.
I need to accelerate my acting career. How can I do this? But hopefully that was useful. We will speak to Matt and we'll follow up and speak more on that. I want to get to know Eddie, and I've got lots of questions for you, Eddie. Before we do that, though, I'm going to draw a line here for Fix viewers. If you want to see the rest of this, what will surely be a shambolic, strange, rambling conversation, but perhaps interesting and insightful as well, with some of the best copywriters in the world, i.e. Nick and Eddie. You want to sign up to Fix Accelerator, there'll be links somewhere around here to do that. But otherwise, we'll say goodbye to Fix members.
If you enjoy the Fix and want to get access to even more good stuff, join the Fix Accelerator today. Get access to special masterclasses from Nick and me, watch expert interviews with industry legends, join live copy feedback sessions every week, and get connected to our very own private copy network. Visit thefixaccelerator.com for more information.